Hi everyone, thank you for coming. While we wait for more people to come, if everyone could just sort of introduce themselves in the chat, because I think we have people from a lot of different areas. So if everyone could just kind of say like where they're from, what state or city, that would be really cool.
Yeah, definitely. While we wait, we can also have all our presenters now introduce themselves. I'm Ruth. Like I said earlier, I'm a co-founder of NoVasta, and I live in Maryland.
I'm Sophia. I'm also a co-founder, and I live in Boston.
I'm Ariana. I'm the founder of NoVasta, and I live in Boston as well.
I'm Jack. I'm from Food4Philly. We're based in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and that's where I'm from.
Yeah, my name's Hugh. I'm also from Food for Philly in Pennsylvania.
Looks like we have a lot of Massachusetts representation in the chat. Okay, we'll give it a second.
Someone from Westchester, PA. That's like 10 minutes away from us.
Cool. Okay, I think we can go ahead and get started. Um, This is going to be our presentation on food insecurity, and we're joined by Food for Philly and we're NoVasta. So, a little bit of an agenda, what we're going to be doing today. We're going to be going through our introduction, kind of a background on food insecurity as a problem, and then we're going to be touching on our experience and Food for Philly's experience. And then we're going to be doing looking forward and having kind of a panel slash question and answer with everyone that is in the webinar right now. So we can go through some introductions.
So, a little bit on NoVasta's founding. We were based in Boston, Massachusetts, and we actually started out as just a club at our school, and then we started finding just testimonies from people from around the state saying that they saw the same overflowing dumpsters and the same empty hands in their communities. And we started expanding throughout the state and then eventually throughout the country and then across the world as well. So essentially, what we do is we partner with local restaurants and we donate their excess food to local shelters. And we also do stuff like food drives and a lot of policy and advocacy work as well.
Yeah, I think it's really important to us to kind of hone in on that dual mission that we have of combating food waste and also food insecurity. So, which is why we highlight that environmental impact of food waste and also really push for students to be educated in the causes that they're joining, which an example of that is this webinar. I think the way to truly advocate for issues is to understand how they affect different communities. And that's exactly what we hope to do through this presentation and help you guys sort of understand why we do what we do.
Definitely. A really big part of our mission has been to educate people, primarily youth, on sort of like the detrimental impacts of food waste and food insecurity. And so it's really amazing to connect with like minded youth who are also passionate about learning more about these issues and making a change. And we're so fortunate to be able to connect with people our age, like all across the country, but also in other countries, and also professors and professionals who have dedicated so much time and effort into learning about these issues and researching food waste and food insecurity. So, yeah, it's really amazing to meet people who share our interests. So, a big thank you to everyone for joining and wanting to learn more.
This is a little summarization of what we do. Um, so first we partner with the shelters and then we find partnering restaurants in the local area. And then we try to find volunteers doing outreach through social media, signups through school, for volunteers in the region. And then we have those volunteers and we go as well and we schedule pickup with these restaurants of their excess food and then we donate the excess food to those shelters that we partnered with.
Yeah, so this process sort of embodies our mission of turning excess into access. So we find leftover food, like Ariana said, and we donate it to shelters. It's a very simple process, but I think it takes a lot of volunteers and youth engagement in order to carry out. So this is what our field work is primarily composed of.
So these are just a few stats on our impact since our founding. Yeah.
Yeah, so we've had over 8,000 meals donated, which is essentially what we said, our food rescue. We donate meals that would have otherwise been thrown out, and donate it to shelters to combat the food insecurity crisis. We have around 300 plus volunteers, and these are located in our different chapters, different regions. And we have 25 different chapters, which you can all find on our website at novastaboston.org if you're interested in seeing if there's anything around you locally that you could join.
Yes, and if you would be interested in starting a chapter or sort of spreading that impact in your own area, then definitely reach out to us as well.
All right, hey everybody. I'm Jack. I'm the president of Food4Philly. We are a 501c3 nonprofit based out of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, with a mission to combat food insecurity through student-led initiative. And by student-led, I mean that everyone that's part of the organization is either a college or high school student, so we have no parental or adult oversight. And one of our main things that we do, which is shown on the screen, is our Hunting Park Distribution Initiative. So we're based in North Philadelphia, specifically Hunting Park area. It was classified as a food desert in 2015, and we have led some of the revitalization efforts in that area through this distribution. What we do is we get over 5,000. Recently, it's been upwards of 10,000 pounds of food donated from partners, donated from local restaurants in the area, donated from local grocers or produce markets. And we collect it all in this park and we distribute it to those in need in Philadelphia. So you can see pictured there one of our volunteers handing out food. And then if you look at our impact, to date, we have distributed almost 140,000 pounds of food to the people of Philadelphia. We have almost 300 volunteers, and we've raised over $55,000, which goes to funding the purchases of food as well as purchases of materials and tables and stuff like that.
Definitely. So both Food4Philly and NoVasta have that dual mission of fighting food insecurity whilst preventing food waste. And by donating food, we're definitely preventing food from going into landfills and causing environmental issues, but also simultaneously ensuring that it goes to those who are in need instead.
Go ahead.
Sorry, no, you can go ahead.
We're going to be just jumping into some background about food insecurity. So if you guys don't know exactly what the term means and the effects that it has.
Definitely. So food insecurity is such a large-scale issue throughout our entire world, but in the United States alone, almost 50 million people face food insecurity, and out of that number, about 13 million are children. So this means that about 1 in every 5 children throughout our country do not have access to adequate amounts of food to sustain themselves. And food insecurity can range throughout different demographics, but some of the communities that are most likely to be food insecure are communities of color, immigrant communities, LGBTQIA plus communities, individuals with disabilities, single-parent households, those who are formerly incarcerated, and people in certain geographic areas. A lot of people in very large urban cities face food insecurity, but food insecurity is also prevalent in rural areas and especially the South. This is just a list of some of the most food insecure states throughout our country. And as you can see, a lot of them are in the South, but it's also really important to keep in mind that food insecurity is a prevalent issue everywhere. There's really no such thing as a state or a city or any area that doesn't have this issue. I think Ariana can talk a little bit about food insecurity around the globe.
So of course, I think Sophia covered a lot domestically of the food insecurity stats, but that's definitely an issue that a lot of countries around the world are also facing as well. As you can see here, 2.3 billion people around the world face some sort of food insecurity, and up to 757 million people face hunger, and that's 1 in every 11 people. And there's a list of a few countries that are top on the food insecurity scale.
Yeah, so there are a lot of reasons and contributing factors to food insecurity. Poverty and low income is the most prominent reason for food insecurity, as many people can't afford to buy food, or they can't afford to buy enough food or nutritious food. And some low income households may spend about a quarter of their income on food, whereas higher income households tend to spend a smaller percentage on it. Um, Expensive living costs also contribute to food insecurity, as people may need to allocate money to other aspects of their lives, like housing, utilities, healthcare, and transportation. And systemic inequity is also a largely contributing factor, as discrimination, both historical and present, can create cycles of poverty and food insecurity that are hard to break. And another reason is health barriers. Individuals with health conditions may require certain types of food or medication or care, and without access to these resources and without access to the kinds of nutrition they require, often due to income restrictions, food insecurity may become worse.
Yeah. And before we talk about sort of the effects of food insecurity, I kind of wanted everyone to take a minute and type in the chat what you think an effect may be, or a clarification you have, any questions you might have right now. So please utilize the chat, or you can feel free to unmute. Just type out what you think an effect of food insecurity is. We'll give you guys a minute to do that.
Yeah, these effects can include effects on physical health, mental health, socioeconomic aspects, just whatever comes to mind.
Yeah, definitely. I think malnutrition is a huge outcome, or impact of food insecurity, and a lot of the things that are being said in the chat also related to physical health. I think someone said education as well. I think, yeah, education. Could you like kind of expand on that? Is it like access to education that you're talking about, or like how that would be linked? Because I think it's an important point. I'm just trying to understand, like, is that in the socioeconomic realm? Poor mental health for sure. Development of disease, yeah. I think we can go on to
Yeah, definitely. I
actually
think everything in the
impact.
chat, sorry, I think everyone said really good points on food insecurity in the chat. And I think another thing is that food insecurity is often, I think we've seen before, the effects of it are often factors that these individuals can't control, and then it inevitably causes a really vicious cycle with throughout generations of food insecurity, and then these same effects.
Definitely, yeah. And every point that was said in the chat is definitely an effect of, or yeah, an impact of food insecurity. But as we were saying earlier, food insecurity can really affect individuals in terms of physical health, mental health, and socioeconomic aspects of their lives. So, in terms of physical health, it can definitely lead to malnutrition. And individuals who are food insecure are also more likely to face chronic diseases like high blood pressure, diabetes, heart disease. And those who are food insecure are more likely to have weakened immune systems, which makes them more susceptible to various illnesses. And food insecurity can also lead to poor oral health, which means dental issues and infections, as individuals who are food insecure often have to resort to purchasing lower quality food that is less healthy and less nutritional. And in terms of mental health, food insecurity really does contribute to higher rates and instances of mental health disorders such as depression and anxiety. And it also contributes to cognitive impairment, especially in children. So, this has to do with, I know someone said education in the chat. So, this can really affect children's education as it kind of prevents them from developing and retaining information as well as they should.
Yeah, and talking a little bit more about the socioeconomic impacts of food insecurity, there's definitely an increase in healthcare costs, which Sophia talked about in the other slide, a decreased productivity, which can also connect to education or working life, less ability to work and learn, which means less economic opportunity. And it's kind of a cycle of poverty that is being fueled by food insecurity. And also increased crime rates. I think impacts of food insecurity are especially seen in minority communities, and that does essentially lead to these cycles of poverty and increased crime rates being more prevalent in those communities.
Yeah, so Ruth and Sophia kind of talked about this, but the solution to the problem is multifaceted. We kind of view like food insecurity as more of an iceberg. So at the top, you obviously see like visible hunger and the community, which is like when you drive into one of these communities, you can see it. You can see people maybe hungry, starving, wanting food. But below the water is where the problems actually are. So first, you have access barriers. This is kind of a big problem in Philadelphia, where where neighborhoods in Philadelphia don't have public transportation, and these neighborhoods also tend to be not have tend to be disadvantaged socioeconomically as well, which means that they can't afford private transportation or individual transportation, which means that they just really don't have access to go to and get quality food. And these access barriers often come from systemic inequality, which is just like basically the uneven distribution of resources and wealth within like a community or a city. And then these inequities are caused by structural drivers like economic motives and politicians. So really the change, like you can go into a community that's struggling from hunger and give them food, but if you want real long lasting change, then you have to attack the problem at its roots, which is at its structure and its systemic inequality. So yeah.
And I think you mentioned this before a little bit, but policy, politicians, and just politics in general has a huge impact and is really closely tied to food insecurity in our country. And I think recently we've seen some of the largest cuts to SNAP or I think it's more commonly known as food stamps in US history. And I think here we see a lot of articles about it. And I just wanted to remind all the students here that we can really make a tangible impact in our communities. I think with federal cuts, this shifts a lot of the focus and access for food to the state level. And I know in Massachusetts, our governor has recently signed a bill that has created a food insecurity task force. And I think these changes and these new initiatives wouldn't be possible without their constituents reaching out and pushing for those changes to be made. And so in Boston, specifically at a lot of our um, new budget hearings, we've had members testify in support of more access and more just resources in general for combating food insecurity. And I think there's so many things that students can do. I think one of them, of course, is contacting your elected officials. Students can call, email, or even meet with their representatives to demand they oppose SNAP cuts and support food access programs. And I think another thing that our organization has been doing, and all individuals can be doing is submitting public comments when the USDA or state agencies propose rule changes. And these comments are open to everyone, not just organizations. So that's something that everyone can be doing. And I think another thing is testifying at hearings or attending city council or state house meetings on food access, school meals, or just SNAP funding in general.
Yeah,
I
I
can
think,
add. Oh, sorry.
oh, go ahead.
I can also add on. Food for Philly was recently featured in an article about these cuts because they have directly impacted our work in providing food to the communities that we serve. So I would just like to add that like even though a lot of these articles are focusing on the kind of macro national level of yeah, he's cutting, major national programs, it does sort of trickle down to the very local levels. And at Food for Philly, we've been pretty hard pressed to get the food that we need from our partners because they just have less access to the amount of food because they don't have as much funding from the government. And so it really does affect everybody, not just sort of the big national organizations. It really does trickle down to the local communities and to the local people who are just trying to get food in their communities.
Yeah, for sure. And here in Maryland, I've spoken to members that have told me that even food access and, oh, am I frozen?
No, you're good.
Sorry, my Wi-Fi just glitched. Food access and food policy councils have been dismantled because of the funding cuts, and even supporting local programs. So I think it's really imperative for youth to take that role and speak out. You can submit testimony for free. Just search up your state and track the bills that are being passed or being heard, and just provide your input. You don't have to do it on behalf of an organization, but you can do it if you reach out to us on behalf of NoVasta. And I'm sure Food for Philly would also be happy to support individuals who are interested in doing that. So I think just making sure that you're remaining proactive and when you hear the news and when you read the news, actually making sure to reflect and be like, okay, I can actually do something about this because it's not just on the national scale.
Yeah, definitely. I think a lot of this also starts with just fostering conversation within your communities. I know one of Boston's representatives, Ayanna Pressley, she recently, with Congressman McGovern and Project Red, they hosted a listening session in East Boston, and they were able to draw attention to a lot of the devastating impacts that this bill has had on the community. And I think being proactive and contributing and also just fostering these kind of conversations can really highlight the local impact.
Yeah, and a lot of the time, the first step is educating yourself and also educating others, really just making an effort to learn about how prevalent food insecurity is in your own area, and kind of researching any legislation in your area surrounding food insecurity or food waste. And then from there, you can sort of learn more about what Ariana was talking about earlier, just sort of any space for you to contribute to making a change.
So that does conclude our presentation. Thank you so much, everyone, for listening. Here is all of our contact information, and we'll just keep it up while we answer any questions. We did receive a couple questions in the Google form, so I can pull those up and we can answer while you guys sort of follow us on social media, or reach out, write down the emails, or visit the websites and just kind of see the work that everyone has been doing. Um, I'm gonna just say our first question, which we actually did kind of answer already, but it's how is the current political state potentially causing stress or making you rethink ways that you want to help the community? So I think we can all sort of pitch in and answer this. Specifically for NoVasta, we definitely have been pushing for more financial contributions from all our chapters to sort of fundraise and donate that money to support programs within our communities that are fighting food insecurity. So local food pantries that may have had access cut from their programs. So I think it's definitely really important to do the advocacy portion, but also actually making that impact through either financial contributions or just going and volunteering at your local pantry and seeing how you can help out. So it definitely has made us more kind of motivated in terms of pushing for sort of what Hugh was talking about in that iceberg, like the structural inequalities rooted in food insecurity. So I think I can pass it on to anyone else to add on to that question.
Yeah, just expanding on what I said earlier. At Food for Philly, we rely a lot on our partners to supply us with food. They have their own food networks and they get their own food donations. And then we collaborate with them at our events. One of our biggest partners is TCRC. They're a community healing center based in North Philadelphia. And I think the biggest impact of these SNAP cuts, government funding cuts, has been that they've actually had to scale back the amount of food that they can give us pretty significantly. So as I mentioned earlier, we do events every week in Hunting Park, and they've now only committed to giving us food every other week. So actually, this is a pretty recent thing, and so it's been on my mind recently. But we've been scrambling to find other sources of food, other sources of donations, so that we can keep our events going every week in Hunting Park. So further expanding on my point that this is a very pressing thing and a very local thing. It's not at the national level. It's not something that's going to take effect, 10 months from now or 12 months from now. It is making a direct impact right now, and it's causing, at least for Food for Philly, a lot of stress for us. And it just reminds us that, yeah, we rely on donations, we rely on funding, and if that gets cut, our whole mission is in jeopardy.
Yeah,
Yeah,
1000%.
definitely. I
I
think,
think, yeah.
sorry, go on.
No, go ahead, Ariana.
Oh no, I was just saying that we have, as NoVasta, I can speak for NoVasta, we've definitely felt a lot of the impacts of this as well. But I think this just kind of sheds a light to how important more local work is. I think a lot of grassroots work and organizations that aren't funded by the federal government, this is a chance for them to step up and to foster more local connections that are just independent from federal funding. And I think that's something, especially since it's grassroots, something that everybody can do and get involved in.
I see another question in the chat. How did you guys first go out and start up slash garner support for your respective organizations? How did you gather actual physical community outreach? I think that's a great question. Like Ariana mentioned, we actually started as a club at our school, so we sort of pushed on the importance of engaging with your community, and we were able to get volunteers through that. So yeah, I think also in terms of support, if you mean partnerships with restaurants, we sort of just went and talked to these places and cited legislation, various pieces of legislation that supports food insecurity. For example, the Emerson Act, which essentially states that any food that these restaurants donate can't be held liable if it makes people sick. So I think that's a big incentive, sort of knowing that these places won't be kind of in a legal bond with us if they make a partnership. It's sort of just contributing to our cause. Um, I think Sophia and Ariana, you guys can also touch on that for NoVasta, and then we'll pass it on.
Yeah. I
For
think another thing that everyone can do is just researching local legislation, whether it's in your city or in your state that's already in place that can support the work you can do. For instance, in Massachusetts, we have a commercial food waste ban that prevents a lot of big just institutions from throwing away their food. And so I think a lot of volunteers can step up and offer to drive that excess food to local shelters.
Yeah, and such a big part, just to kind of go back to the question in the chat, sort of garnering support, like a really big part of that has been really just explaining to people what a huge issue food insecurity and food waste is. I think it's something that a lot of people know about, but it's just such a common and widespread thing that we don't often like think about it in detail, but just kind of when you, like as Ariana was saying, educate yourself and sort of start to educate others. I think that is a really big way that we've garnered support, just by like spreading awareness on how important it is to try and make those changes.
yeah, we can pass it on to Jack or Hugh.
I can take this one just because, once again, I'll talk about our specific hunting park initiative for this one. I think it's a good example and it's something that I've worked very closely with because I was kind of responsible for starting that initiative. So I can definitely touch on this a little bit. I think honestly, like my biggest thing is just go out there and do something. Like Food for Philly, we believe a lot in taking action. And so with Hunting Park, what we did is we didn't wait for, you know, partner organizations. We didn't wait for legislation. We didn't wait for people to tell us, okay, now's your time. We found a park. We did our research. We found a park in North Philadelphia that we knew needed help. We went out there. We bought some tables. We got some food, and then we started giving out food. And for the first 2 weeks, we had nobody show up. We had like signs. Literally, we were standing on the side of the road with signs that said "free food," holding up, saying, "Please, please come get some free food." We had like a few boxes of carrots and grapes. And then over time, just people started to realize we handed out flyers. We said, we hear every week, 12 to 2 p.m. We started to gain a little traction. Organizations reached out to us and said, we'd love to help out to support your cause. We reached out to other local organizations and said, this is what we've already been doing. Here's how you can support this cause. And we found that if you make that first step, if you go out there and you start something, you start handing out food, oftentimes that support, those partnerships, that will all come afterwards because once people see that you're actually doing something, you're actually making a tangible impact, they're much more willing to support you because they know that, once they give you that support, you're going to continue doing what you're already doing.
Yeah, I think Jack made a good point there. You can always like complain about the current legislation and like the current government, but really what matters is just you going out and doing it no matter what. I agree that it does place more pressure on the food sources, but doing whatever you can with the amount of food that you have is necessary for fighting this problem.
Yeah, I think obviously NoVasta and Food for Philly have had different experiences in different situations, but I feel that something we've had in common is just being patient and persistent. I think, like I know Jack was talking about how it took some time to really get started up, and it definitely did for NoVasta as well. I mean, for some of the restaurants that we are partnered with, we've had to go back and talk to the owners or the managers like up to 7 times, but now we're partnered with those restaurants. And also just being consistent. And I definitely agree with what Hugh was saying. Like, we all do have the power to make some sort of difference, and some sort of difference, like whether one person gets a meal that they wouldn't otherwise have had, or whether 100 people get meals that they wouldn't have otherwise had, it still definitely is making an impact on someone on some scale, which is really great.
Yeah, and one last question that we received is how do you communicate the importance of food security to policymakers? And I think that kind of connects to our mission of having sort of being rooted in policy advocacy. Novasa has met with a bunch of policymakers. We've emailed people, and we also encourage all our chapters to engage with their local legislation. We've submitted public comment to the USDA, FDA, and FSIS in regard to different issues regarding food insecurity, specifically in terms of food waste, which was supporting an act that basically said to standardize food labels because a lot of food is wasted since there's no standardization in food labeling. So that's just one example of something that we've done in order to sort of get the attention of policymakers. We've also been in several meetings with different people that actually serve in local policy councils and food equity and food access councils, and sort of seeing how we can support their programs. I think especially now it's really important to support the work of local councils because they're the voices that are advocating for the community and making sure that individuals are working towards sort of targeting structural inequities in terms of food insecurity. I can pass it on to Food for Philly if you guys want to.
Yeah, I think this is definitely more kind of your guys' domain, so I'm not gonna say too much, but I will agree that I think it's really important to show some results as well. Like I know at Food for Philly, what's been really effective for us has been actually showing people the turnout at our events. So, for instance, last week in Hunting Park, we had almost 800 people, 800 families show up to our food donation. And I think it's pretty incredible when you think about that number because 800 families in just one local park in just one section of Philadelphia really highlights just how pressing that issue is in Philadelphia because I mean just think about how many other families there are in Philadelphia that don't know about this opportunity or that's too far away for them. And so by showing people in government policymakers these results, by showing them these numbers, it's pretty undeniable, I'd say, that it's a problem. in our area, and it often gets them to really reflect on how they feel about these topics. But we certainly don't focus on that as much as NoVasta does. So.
Yeah,
Thank you
thank you for
so, oh,
sharing.
sorry.
Go ahead, Ariana.
Okay, no, I just wanted to say, I think this is something, I think I've said this a few times, but I think you guys talked about it too. Like in Philadelphia, it's had a huge impact on the local scale. And I think another thing I just wanted to kind of plug it is the Zero Food Waste Coalition with Harvard Law School's Food Policy Clinic. That's something that I'm pretty sure their meetings are open to the public. I'm not exactly sure, but I'm pretty sure they are. And in it, you can hear about current initiatives that you can get involved in. I think Ruth was talking about earlier, this bill for standardizing food labeling, and that's one thing that can prevent food waste. But I think a lot of the other things are related to food insecurity, food rescue. But yeah.
Yeah, so we are a member of the Zero Food Waste Coalition. So if you are part of NoVasta and you're interested in sort of joining these meetings, definitely let us know. And if you're not, we can also get you to listen in on a meeting. I think it's through membership that you attend the meetings, but I'm pretty sure their information is available on their website. So if there's ever sort of like a public hearing or something that they're hosting, I think it should be open to everyone. And they also, I think it's Refed that has a map, and it's basically a policy map, and you can zoom in and find like different policy councils or different initiatives that are located in your area. So it's like a map of the United States. I can actually find the link to that and send it in the chat if anyone's interested in exploring that. Um, but yeah, those are all our questions. Does anyone else in this Zoom meeting have any questions? You can feel free to unmute um, or just message in the chat.
And if anyone has any questions later on, definitely always feel free to reach out over email, over our Instagram, over DMs, and definitely feel free to check out our website as well as Food for Philly's social media just to kind of learn more and get our contact information.
Yeah, so I can hold on. Let me share my screen again with the website so we can just do that for a little bit. So there's a few websites I think that can be found really easily. There's this, which is the policy map, and there's food insecurity data. And they basically just like you can zoom in and find um, well, different information from the USDA's household food security map. But the one that I was referring to is ReFed. This is actually food waste policy finder. And like you can, for example, Pennsylvania, and you can find like different things that are going on in terms of food waste regulations that are happening. And there's this like the date labeling that we were talking about. They just required it for dairy, shellfish, reduced oxygen packaging, and then time temp control. So this is just an example of something that anyone can really use to sort of find legislation that they want to support. So I can actually send this in the chat and you guys can take a look and see like in your local communities. I know we have a diverse range of audience here. You can find sort of what you can do to help support. Okay, if there are no other questions, I think that should be it. Yeah, I think
Yeah,
that's it. So thank you so much, everyone, for joining. I know this session was shorter, but We just stay on for like 2 minutes just so we can take attendance and you guys can get your community service. Like I said earlier, we're going to be emailing everyone through the email that you used to sign up. So if you did use an email to sign up, make sure you send the email in the chat before you leave because then we will have no way to contact you. So make sure either you fill out that form or you send a message to us through the chat. But thank you so much for attending. And thank you so much to Food for Philly to partnering with us for this.
Thank you for having us. Yeah.
Thank you guys so much. It's been great to share about food insecurity with everybody, and I hope you guys all learn something about food insecurity and also how you can help solve the problem in your local community.
Yeah, thanks so much, guys. It was great to see everyone.
Yeah, and we hope to see some of the same people tomorrow in our segment for environmentalism. We have an exciting speaker for that. So, yeah. I just took attendance, so everyone can feel free to leave. I'm gonna end the Zoom meeting.